Hey everyone, today we are looking at a ZBT cast. Do the introductions and then I want to talk about a couple things here. I am the Zerk player Rekatan on the left side, and then our blue Terran is going to be Razuik on the lower right. Now, okay, first and foremost, overwhelming feedback. The mic sucks. I am so sorry about the mic. I had to replace my old one, and this one is not so good. I got it for like 30 bucks from Office Depot on a whim. So I have a SteelSeries mic, really highly rated. I can't remember the name of it, but it should fix the issue, and it's coming in 3 days. So my next cast, or the cast following, should be fixed. So again, sorry for the really horrible S sounds. Other than that, I really appreciate everyone who has started watching. Welcome to the YouTube videos and to the stream. The guide that I posted seems to be really well received so far. So thank you so much, guys, who have shown up and started watching. You guys are awesome. Anyone who's been watching since 2010, you're awesome too. I still love you. Don't worry. We're still best friends. Okay. Now, I know I said I was going to cast some losses, but a funny thing happened. I stopped losing ZVT. I went 5-0 the last time I played on ladder. It was actually unranked and ranked, but they were all high masters on the unranked side. So I'm kind of at a loss. So what I did was I picked... at a loss, get it? That was awesome. So, I'm such a dork. So I picked the games. I've got 2 games lined up to cast. I picked ones that I feel my opponent really taxed me as well as they possibly could, and in 2 very different ways. So I think that's still going to give us some learning experiences. But I looked back at my old losses, and it was just like, man, I'm making mistakes in these I just don't make anymore. So it didn't feel like it would be representative of my play in any way, shape, or form. Alright, so we're opening up with 15 hatchery, 15 pool. This is my standard right now, ZBT. Typically don't scout. I find the 14 hatch, 15 pool can handle even proxy Reaper fairly well because I do blind spine. That blind spine really makes all the difference in the world. It allows you to consolidate your queens if necessary, especially if you get that first creep tumor up. My opponent looks like we're going to be going for kind of a strange wall in, but it's just a preferential thing. The one thing about that is it's a little more vulnerable to a Baneling bust, but no big deal otherwise. Also, you can actually Roach snipe up that ramp now that I think about it. But either way, that would still happen. And he's got 1 gas, so it does look like we have some Reaper pressure. Got a low ground bunker, and let me know your preference. I used to do the casts from just my side so that we could see how my scouting looked. Right now I'm doing a bird's eye view. I don't know which I prefer. It is kind of fun talking about the opponent's build, but let me know what you prefer. Oh, the other thing is I noticed the non-words coming back for me from way back in the day. The ums, the uhs, the whatevers. So I'm going to try and start allowing myself to pause and breathe a little more rather than saying So I warn you, there may be awkward silence, but hopefully I'll get better at it. The Reaper jumping in here. Looks like I am going to get that SCV, and really I wasn't too concerned. I had delayed the SCV a little bit as it was from working on that bunker, allowing my spine to go ahead and finish up, even if that bunker had finished. 1 Reaper in a bunker, not going to do too terribly much when the spine crawler finishes. And I can always do some extractor shenanigans to keep my drones alive as necessary. Alright, so we have 2 extractors going down. Now, what I'm doing here is actually a new build that I've just started working on. This actually was the first day that I started with it, and it is a Hatch Tech Burrow Roach timing into macro. And into macro I mean double expand right behind the Roaches. It's a lot of fun. It first developed because I was watching the Roach all-ins that were coming about on streams, and even some that I had played around with back in beta, and I realized, you know what, the economy works out as such that you probably can go ahead and macro out of it if you just don't include speedlings behind the Roaches. And lo and behold, it does seem to work out really well. So we're going to see that here in a bit. We have double gas, and that allows me to do this in a reactionary fashion to Reapers, because I find Reapers are generally going to then go into Hellions. If they don't go into Hellions, they may go right into Widow Mines, but more often than not, they're going to get 4 to 6 Hellions with those Reapers so that they can really pressure a 3rd. So this absolutely build counters it. But the reason I'm casting this game is because things don't quite go according to plan, so I felt like it was a great way to show this build at its most countered, so to speak. So the Roach Warren's going down, and we're going to be ready to apply some pressure. Now notice I started Metabolic Boost. The reason is because I saw 2 Reapers rather than just 1. That means I'm going to need some speedlings back home to go ahead and secure those bases, that third and fourth. You're going to allow your minerals to float up a bit here, because you're going to need some extra overlords. You're going to need all those minerals for roaches once those overlords pop. Now again, these timings are not tight. This is just something I'm experimenting with. So you're going to see times when it's like, oh, he could have made an overlord a little bit sooner and gotten his roaches out sooner, and etc., etc. That's all going to happen as this build evolves. But for now, it's just kind of, we're seeing what we see, and hopefully it'll get cleaner and cleaner as the days go on. I did force this once, actually. I saw a marine, basically a bio opening, and I forced it, and it still worked really well. So I think this is a really stable way to open. You could even make this a standard if you tightened up the timings, and I may do that. I may forego any kind of fast muta open and just do this as my standard. So a couple of roaches moving out ahead of time. My goal here is to push him back so that he feels this is just to open up my expansion. Now he goes ahead and scans, and he sees nothing too telling, really. That double gas could mean, I mean, if he checks the extractors, he knows I've been mining it for a while. So that is the one thing, is if he's going ahead and checking those extractors, then he's able to go ahead and say, okay, where'd that gas go? Otherwise, though, more than likely, he's thinking I'm going ahead and saving up for a muta open. But this is where things look really good for him. He just kind of star-sensed his way into a ton of defensive widow mines. Now, maybe this was because he didn't see a quick third. I'm not sure. But either way, doing a ton of damage here. He is. Cleaned up quite a few lings and some roaches. But the important thing is there's those double extractors. Now let's take a look at my production behind this. Already at 54 drones. 2 bases are about to go up for a total of 4. And I still have a really healthy contain here, even with these widow mines. My roach count is high enough that he's going to be able to go ahead and try and move up, but not without the risk of losing the mines as they burrow. Once he does have that 1-second burrow upgrade, then he's going to, I get drilling claws if I remember right, then he's going to be able to work with something. But until then, excuse me, until then he's going to go ahead and have to play defensively. The other nice thing about this is, check this out, I've already got his third and his fourth blocked. Such an early point in the game to have this block, and that gives me one more advantage moving into this mid-game, especially if I also get some overlords dropping creep, because then you've got them double blocked, and more often than not they're going to actually just expect the overlords to be blocking. So they'll wait for the creep to recede, then they'll try to burrow, realize they can't, or try to land, realize they can't, and then have to go ahead and waste a scan. So it really does delay their expansions quite heavily. Alright, so we're making tons of drones, still some zerglings, because I suspect, since he hasn't tried to expand yet, that he is going to go for some pressure. Let's see where our income's at right now. 68 drones, 71 drones. This is great. This is right where I want to be, since I'm going right into infestors. Now the other cool thing about this is, notice that I'm able to then go ahead and go right into infestors, and then by association go into the swarmos. Now with these, I wish I had had roach speed a little sooner, but since I don't, I'm going to have to just try and pull him away from my base. Notice where I'm retreating. I'm not retreating towards my base. I'm actually retreating away from my base, because the further away from my base I pull back, the longer it's going to take him to reach me, the more time I have to prepare. Putting up some emergency spines, but the reality of this situation is this pocket third is going to go down. I'm going to have to transfer to the vertical. And that's just, I mean, I'm not too terribly worried about that. Part of the advantage of a double expand is you can afford to go ahead and sack one and still be a base up. This stage of the game, we do want to stay a base up. Bit of miss micro there, lost a bunch of links for free. So that's not so good. Alright, so I'm transferring out. I'm just going to go ahead and say, you know what, between widow mines and all this bio, I'm not really going to be able to do much. Should have started those spines sooner. They would have really helped a lot. Now this, I was raging a bit. Look at that. Oh man, you got almost half my banelings there as they were morphing. And that's just, I mean, stupid mistake on my part. Now, I assumed that was all of his widow mines. It was not. Look at those beautiful widow mine hits. By beautiful, I mean disgusting, nevertheless. So here we are. We've got a ton of widow mines hanging out at our natural, but we do have a bunch of spines, and that's going to probably prevent him from pushing any further. Once this overseer gets into position, which barely stops a couple of these from firing, we're going to be able to clean up those widow mines, and we're still a base up, and that's what's so great about this open. I feel that's where this is really something that's actually very robust, because he's going to probably kill a base if he commits to this kind of 2-base aggression. But were we ever behind on economy? Other than when the drones themselves were actually transferring? No, probably not. Now, we are a little behind on supply, but that's going to be okay, because I am also, I believe, ooh, there was an onward, got to try to catch those. I am also going ahead and pulling ahead on upgrades in this case. Man, I did it again. It's going to drive me nuts. So he's on single engineering bay, and I am on double evolution chamber. So this is a great place to be in for my eventual swarm host switch. Finally getting those extra widow mines cleaned up. Lost way more than I needed to there. Now, we are down on drones just because we're spamming out some more spines, but we're going to go ahead and get that recovered here. But at this stage, I felt like I actually needed units more than I needed drones just because I needed to stabilize. Especially because I did go ahead and get that third up. I wish I was dropping creep down here, but instead he just needed to hit a scan. But up top, I do have that double block going, so that'll hopefully pay off later on. Alright, so we are starting. Oh, we are not starting. Did I accidentally cancel that? Oh no, I canceled it because first I wanted to go Infester. There it is. I'm forcing myself to go Infester. I used to get really greedy and say, oh, no. I killed his army, so let's go ahead and just go straight into Swarm Host. But I'm just finding more often than not, I say, man, I really need 3 Infestors. So I'm forcing myself to do it even if I feel like I could get away with it, because ultimately it's like droning when you know your opponent is going all in. It's just trying to roll the dice and see if you manage to get ahead. And I'm trying to do that less and less. Less all-ins, less suicide droning, and in this case, less skipping my Infestor tag, as much as I hate the damn things. Always hated Infestors. Well, I should say with 1.3 patch when they were missile cast and did a ton of damage, I actually liked them a lot back then, but once they made it no longer missile cast, they got really boring. Now they're missiles, so they're kind of fun, but they don't do much damage. Anyways, total tangent there. We have Razuik moving out. We have 1-0 versus what's going to be 2-2 by the time he reaches my side of the map. So we are happy campers here in the upgrade department. We've got enough army, I would say, with these Infestors, since they are able to go ahead and fungal. We've got enough army that we're going to be able to go ahead and push them back here. So now we just got to watch and see how the fungals are. Now I can't get too terribly close with these widow mines. Now good scans on his part, that he's able to see those Infestors moving up into fungal position. That actually saved his entire army more than likely. I tried to hit a fungal, see if I could go ahead and catch that widow mine, see if I could whittle it down, but still 10 health left. It also does reveal those widow mines, so if you don't have an overseer at the time, that's a good fallback. Waste a fungal to clean up some widow mines. Alright, so he's pushing forward a little bit. I don't know that I necessarily am a fan of this. And I was hoping to just use that last bit of Infestor energy to trigger all of the widow mines, but he went ahead and pulled up and shut that down. That was a really great scan timing on his part. Otherwise, if I would have been able to take out, or I should say trigger those widow mines as well, I would have gotten a cleanup, and I probably would have been able to chase him back with my roaches a bit to go ahead and get some free damage. Now, we did have a drop up top. I apologize for not catching that. I'm not going to be able to catch all of these, unfortunately, because later on I will say the multitasking gets pretty heavy. So some of these, it's just going to be physically impossible for me to catch all of them without picture-in-picture. But I'll do my best to cast this as clean as possible. Overlord positioning, I think this needs to be improved. Look at that. Having a little tea party there. Try to keep the Overlord tea parties or powwows or whatever you want to call them at a minimum. This could be one here, and maybe one hanging out up here. I don't really care if he should sit down, I just need that vision. Try and stay outside of this as long as they've got control of the Zelnaga. That is something I should have reset. Now these are way too far up, but I'm just going to try and minimize my damage that I've received here. I scooted up to see if I could get some Baneling connects, but my Banelings were stuck behind the roaches. So this was a really big mistake on my part, and this was just a case where I was back at home focusing on that macro, focusing on that multitasking, and I'm at 84 drones right now. That's too high. I'm about to cap out. Now we are going to see in another game where it's actually going to be beneficial sometimes to allow your drone count to go up above the rules that I set for our previous cast, but that needs to be with the intention of those then being spent on spines, spores, and macro hatcheries. In this case, I don't necessarily know that I'm going to want a lot of spines and spores, since I'm not really expecting him to go into Hellions, and that's really going to be where it pays off, or Vikings, and that's where the spores are going to pay off. I'm sorry, not Vikings. That one unit, Ravens, there we go. So, in this case, 84 drones not necessarily the best. We get a great cleanup here. Actually, a combination of fungals, Baneling connects, and this upgrade advantage we're still enjoying. Where's he at? Probably 1-1 now? Yep. We were able to clean up that whole army, and we're pulling way ahead on supply now. So this is great. That's just what that upgrade advantage will do for you, especially when you're heavy into roaches. And at this point, I'd like to see myself taking a 5th. He did go ahead and get that Overlord and eventually that Burrowed Zergling cleaned up. And there we go. We've got that 5th. Excellent. So it's been a few days since I've watched this, so I'm hoping it's a little more fresh than when I actually played it. I try and delay it by a few days, but if I remember right, I kind of knew, or not remember right, but I think I kind of knew that one was coming. So, caster cheat. Alright, so we've got just 2 Infestors. I would actually like to see, now that I've realized he's committed to the bio, pathogen glands go ahead and researched, and some more Infestors. I want to keep my Infestor count maybe around 6 throughout the course of the game. I feel like they really do pay off versus this biomine style of play, especially in conjunction with swarm hosts. Now I'm pulling everything back. 1 locust spawn, not too bad, but I'd rather see this position be a little more aggressive. What I've learned is when your opponent goes ahead and starts dropping real heavily, that's your time to go ahead and pull those, or push those swarm hosts as far up as possible. You really want to secure, maybe even as close as here, basically right outside of his widow mines. And with an extra overseer following, I would even be able to push further than that because I'd be able to clean those up. But I'm short on overseers. Big whoops on my part, but hopefully it's fixed here in a bit. Now, why I say that is because, for one, swarm hosts really suck at defending drops. So they're not going to really do too much anyways. The Marine Medevac just dances around them. You're not going to get any clean damage with the Locust. Got more drops coming. For 2, you really got to start that damage as soon as you realize that they're committing their army to drop play, because there's less at home. That means they're going to have a harder time cleaning up those Locusts, and they're going to start trading economy for the economic damage they do back at home. So I'm finally starting to get that to kick in, but we do have him splitting his forces up, really taxing my multitasking here. All the while, I'm finally getting those swarm hosts aggressively positioned. We're cleaning it up at the main. We did take quite a bit of losses, but let's see where our economy's at. Still 78 drones to 67 SCVs, and when you're on swarm hosts, again, that's a little excessive, but in this case, it's giving me a lot of resiliency to this drop play. And we are staying capped out, so that's good. Our opponent is as well, and he's actually got a huge gas float, so I really would like to see from our opponent some Ravens starting to mix in. There's really no reason not to. I don't see why we see so many biomine players avoiding the Ravens, but I feel like they actually synergize really well, even if you're not into siege tanks. Obviously, they're going to be best with siege tank battlecruiser, but even with biomine, you're going to be able to hit a ton of clean seekers to help bolster your DPS on your mines, or on your Marines. Alright, so we're getting to this point where he's starting to feel obligated to push through the Locusts, and that's exactly what you want to happen versus biomine. They're so used to being able to brute force their way through their games right now. And swarm hosts are a case where they can't do that. They especially can't do that when they're behind on upgrades. Now my hive was delayed a bit, so we're probably going to see this equalize. Actually, no, he's going to be 1-1 behind again when his 2-2 finishes. So that's excellent. But yeah, we really want this to be a case where he feels obligated to go ahead and brute force his way through and try and clean up some swarm hosts. Anytime we see that happen, especially if we can get some clean fungals, all we got to do is just shuffle back just a little bit, or maybe in this case we're even going to be able to just go ahead and hold and transfuse through any damage he tries to pull off. Alright, so he cleans up those Infestors. Hopefully we'll get those remade. Believe we do. And this is always going to work out really well. Anytime versus biomine you're able to get Locust buffering for Roach Queen, you're going to get a ton of damage. I pushed forward a little too much, but what I'm trying to do is provide a window here where these swarm hosts can get nice up close and personal. The one thing I forgot is I forgot to replace the overseers that he's been sniping. So this is not so good. He's going to get a ton of free hits with those widow mines. Great scan on his part. He started to kind of read my pattern of spawn swarm host, or spawn locust, then burrow. Spawn locust, then burrow. That's something that I'm going to do more and more often, but if they're preemptively scanning like that, that's going to punish him. So again, we just want to make sure to always pull back those swarm hosts when we see that he's advancing forward. Any non-swarm host army is expendable. I'd say Infestors, not so expendable, Vipers, not so expendable, but they're still more expendable than swarm hosts any day of the week. And I really like this switch from our Terran player, from Razuik. I'm sorry, I try not to do that. It's kind of rude to not say their name. I really like this switch from Razuik. What he's doing is moving into Marauders because they're more resilient to Locust fire. It's going to take longer, giving the Medevacs more time to out-heal the damage. What a cool switch from him. I think that's actually a great response if he's going to stay in Biomine. I don't feel like staying in Biomine is the best course here, though. I feel like he's already been countered, and he's losing the efficiency battle. Now, it would have looked a lot better if I hadn't been losing so much back at home. We would see probably maybe even 1.5 to 2 to 1 ratio there. But given that I've been ahead on economy for so long, this is one situation where I can afford to not quite be as ahead as I would like with Swarm Host play. But again, with this gas float, just 10 Ravens is going to do a world of good for his army. Especially because he'll no longer be spending scans, which means he's going to have more minerals to go into his biomine. Alright, so he tries to pull off a flank, but generally you're going to be able to go ahead and deal with that pretty well, especially if you're making sure to get some changelings out. I've been doing it, but especially since he sniped my overseers and I didn't rebuild them in a large enough quantity, that created some issues. Now, let's see, I'm just kind of curious. 29 swarm hosts. This is actually really good. 3 infestors, not so good. So we actually want to see less buffer units, because you actually can, versus biomine, go pure infestor swarm host, maybe just a few queens. It works really, really well. So I would be perfectly happy to see 6 to 8 more infestors and less roaches. Definitely less drones. By this stage of the game, I want to be down to 60 or so. Let's go back to production, see what we've got going on. So I'm getting some hydras just in case I need to clean up some more medevacs. And we are so heavy on swarm hosts. We're ready to start some multi-prong. But this is a lot of fun. I'm really liking this more and more. Once upon a time I would call this overbuilding swarm hosts. But this feels like just such a good way to end the game. We're pulling off, let's see, we're pulling off actually all but 20 of our swarm hosts. So we've got 9 here. Yes, wow, I'm good at math. We've got 9 here that are going to be able to start pressuring that 5th, and eventually maybe even move on to the 4th once we've cleaned up the 5th. Worst case scenario, this is going to force constant repairs to be used on the orbital, and this is a stage when he's really starved for minerals. So that's great for us, because even if he's repairing at that 25% cost, that's still tying up mining, and that's still spending resources for something that for us is completely free. So that's excellent. Almost got the snipe on that orbital. He's going to lift off, get the repair. I need some overseers up front. Again, I don't feel like I managed my overseers very well at all. In some cases didn't make them. The one thing that's great, though, again, I got that flank covered. And that's really important versus bio, because that's what they're going to go for. Now, in this case, maybe could have pulled up a little sooner, but this is such a great trade for me. I do not actually mind this trade at all. If I remember right, when I was actually playing this game live, I actually counted my swarm hosts afterwards and realized I lost only 3 there, and he lost about half of his bio army. So sometimes it's actually going to be okay when that happens. You don't want it to happen deliberately. You also don't want this to happen deliberately at all. And they're dead. Now, I've had a lot of people say, hey, why don't you go ahead and queue up the command? Sorry, I missed a little flank there. He tried to go up and clean these up. I've had a lot of people mention, why don't you queue up the command? That's because in beta, I played around with it, and it caused the rally command to not occur at all for the swarm hosts, or their first spawn in best case scenario to be idle, but then the following 2 go ahead and rally. I'm going to try that again, see if that was changed, because that was early beta. Sounds like that behavior might have changed a bit. So he's going for the Doom Drop, and this is not uncommon for your biomine opponent. They're going to go ahead and say, you know what, I got to cut my losses, I got to try and go ahead and win in the trade. But that's where your infestors really pay off. They're going to shut down those medevacs, and you can get so aggressive with your swarm hosts now. So we notice I'm pushing on 2 fronts with my swarm hosts. These are idle. They're the stupid swarm hosts that will be mocked for the entire rest of the game, although I don't think there's much left. There it is. Okay, we'll mock them one more time. You guys are mentally challenged. Okay, they're mocked. Now, again, where can I improve here? Well, we've got that bank. That's great. We've got the macro hatcheries for the remax. That's great. We've got a starved opponent who should have made ravens long ago. But where can we improve? Well, first off, the overseers. My God, did I need more overseers. There was a couple times he caught me off guard, and even I wasn't killing mines when I should have been because I was just low on them. I finally realized it towards the end, but that could have cost me the game on more than a few occasions. It was just a few split-second times when I recognized him pushing forward. But otherwise, the lack of changelings in certain key places and the lack of overseer spotting widow mines for my locus almost cost me the game there a few times. The drop play, I felt like I responded to that pretty well. The one thing I can improve is if they're on biomine, let's go ahead and just preemptively make this spore and spine coverage rather than waiting for him to kill off 10 drones and a couple tech buildings. So I can just read my opponent's build a little better. Maybe even scout their, let's see actually. Yeah, it's been a while, but maybe scout a little quicker and recognize the infinite barracks. Yeah, that's a lot of barracks. It's no surprise that he was low on minerals, because we don't see any means to produce ravens, and he was heavily committed to biomine. This is something you're going to see more and more until the metagame changes. Terran players are starting to feel, especially after what they've seen from MLG, that Biomine can just beat all Zerg compositions. I can't say I blame them. It's really good. But I do think that actually Swarmhost Infester can hard counter Biomine, but it requires really, really solid play. Okay, so that's going to be it for this cast. Again, thanks for everyone who's starting to tune in. You guys are awesome. And anyone who's been watching for a long time, you guys are equally awesome. Okay, that's it. Time to get to ladder for me. So again, thanks for watching.